as I said, to go up and look at some mummified bats up on the ledge. And then they decided to crawl on around, and it's when they found it. And immediately, of course, they called in Alonzo Pond, and they started lifting the rock.
Amazing.
I think that thing weighs about 4,000 pounds, I think is what they always said. Took a lot of timber and rigging to get that thing.
I've heard that it took a block and tackle to put the block and tackle in.
Yeah, there's pictures of, the structure they built, and it was pretty heavy.
Do you recall how that trestle come down here to hold that, Lewis?
I think it was mainly on kind of the other side of it here.
I can't really, I'd have to look back at the picture. I think it was right down there.
Yeah, kind of the main block and tackle may have been the top of it here coming down here.
Yeah.
Was that attached to that ledge above? Did you peck that and come off?
What was that?
Was it attached to right above that, Lewis?
Well, you mean that rock?
Yeah.
I have no idea that thing was there, and he probably just enough room to crawl under it, and he moved something. The fall itself didn't kill him; he's mashed to death.
Right.
So I don't know how long that rock had been. I'd say it pulled away from the wall underneath that other thing. I'm just looking at it.
John, you want me to tell him?
Go right ahead.
Well, I guess John and I and Michael's connection to this was my grandfather, Clyde Davis, had moved his family to Louisville in about 1926 and was a carpenter and was apparently a pretty good carpenter. And so whenever the crash hit, the depression hit, and somewhere around 1929, 1930, Clyde Davis then moved his family back down to the ridge. That's where they were all from, out on close to Mammoth Cave Church, there on that ridge. Anyway, he moved his family back home, and the reason he come back here is he thought he'd be able to put out a garden, put out crops, and at least feed his family. Because up in Louisville, there were the soup lines, and so anyway, that's why he brought his family back here to the ridge on Mammoth Cave. Of course, his dad and his brothers were still here. Well, Clyde was one of the lucky ones because he was able to land a job with the CCCs at that time as a carpenter, and must have been a pretty good carpenter. In later years, Daddy never did talk about this much, but he talked about Clyde coming home, his dad coming home, and talk about building this thing for this old mummy they found. And what they initially done, they brought an engineer in here from Virginia. What was his name, Stan or Lewis?
There was a black and there was a Martin. I don't know which one.
But they brought him in here to design and build this trestle to lift that rock up off the mummy because they wanted the rock to come straight up. It couldn't twist or do any of this because they didn't want any more of the mummy damaged. So they got my grandfather down here, may have been others, but I know he was in the crew. And he stayed apparently right by the engineer. And anyway, they built the trestle that held the pulley that lifted that rock off the mummy. And, my dad and his sisters thought, well, that's no big deal, him building that, and he didn't realize that he was making a heck of a contribution to the history of that. But that was kind of our tie to all this. But I'm thinking that he was like a supervisor or something, Lewis, and I'm thinking he made about $2.50 a day.
That'd be about right.
Is that about right? Mm-hmm. So, you were lucky to even find a job during the Depression, but $2.50 a day, I guess, was pretty real money.
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you'll notice this, what they basically use to lift this up off and keep it still